Hello again, everybody, and welcome back to PaulOnSports.com. It's the best weekend of the year in the NFL, folks. The divisional playoff weekend with the top 8 teams in the NFL squaring off to see who can keep advancing on their way to Tampa and Super Bowl 43. And for the local basketball teams, we're going to do a little preview for the next week, a little scouting report on each game for Louisville, Kentucky, and Western. Let's get right to those basketball teams. Hey, Louisville is coming off a big win over Kentucky. Edgar Sosa finally putting his game together and playing a complete game, hitting the game-winning basket to beat Kentucky right at the last second. Edgar's had his problem this year, as had Earl Clark, Samardo Samuels, and a few others. Coach Pitino thinks it's all about focus and about creating a singular mindset from this whole team, about winning. They'll get there. It's going to take a little time, and they have a tough week ahead of them. They'll dispatch South Florida, their first game, in the next 7 days, relatively easily. Then they go to Villanova, where they'll have a little bit of a tougher time, and then they come back on Monday to play Notre Dame at Freedom Hall. 2 tough games in a row, the Villanova and Notre Dame, but I think Louisville goes 3-0 this week, provided Earl Clark shows he can play great basketball and not play like a high schooler and get in people's way and make 7 turnovers in a big game. But I have you here. I have the scores: Louisville 82-66 over South Florida, beating Villanova by 5, and then taking care of Notre Dame at Freedom Hall by 5 points as well. Boy, Kentucky played a terrific game to come back and make it a one-possession game against Louisville this past week, but now they have to face the Tennessee teams. It's their Tennessee swing. They get Vanderbilt at home, and they go down to Tennessee to play the Volunteers next week. 2 tough teams, but I think Kentucky has the ability to win both games if they can develop a third scorer. Jody Meeks, Patrick Patterson, we know what they can do. We know what they bring as offensive threats to every game. But who's going to be that third guy? Who's going to make the contribution every game to help support those 2 leading players? Well, they're going to have their hands full figuring out whom against Vanderbilt, but I think Kentucky wins that game 79-65, and then they go down to Tennessee. And folks, I would not be surprised to see Kentucky pull out a win here, but I'm giving the Tennessee Volunteers a 2-point win in that game. Western Kentucky's our next team, and they go down south, down to Florida for their Florida swing. They got Florida International and Florida Atlantic this week. It's going to be tough for the Hilltoppers. 2 games down in South Florida. Tough teams, but you know what? They survived a real strong non-conference schedule. They went 9-5 early this year. Now they get to the meat of their conference schedule. They've played so many good teams. I think once they get into the conference, these games get a little easier for the Hilltoppers, and they take both games down in Florida, beating Florida International by 1 and Florida Atlantic by 8. Those are my predictions. And now we'll go to the NFL. Folks, traditionally, the best 8 teams play this weekend of the year. I don't think the best 8 teams are playing right now. I don't even think one of the top 6 teams in the NFL, the New England Patriots, didn't even make the playoffs. But right now, we've got these 4 games coming at you. First, Baltimore and Tennessee. Folks, they played earlier this year. And in fact, all 4 games are rematches of games from earlier this year. Tennessee won the first round. Kerry Collins led 2 fourth-quarter drives down the field against that very good Baltimore defense, and they won the game 16-13. There's a little problem with Baltimore right now. Things going against them. One, no rookie quarterback has ever won 2 playoff games in his rookie season. Joe Flacco, rookie quarterback, has already won 1, but you can see by his statistics, he wasn't very effective last week at Miami. 9 for 23 for only 135 yards passing. Geez, I just think Tennessee, with Thunder and Lightning or Smash and Dash, whatever you want to call them, Lendale White and Chris Johnson are going to be a little better than Baltimore in this game. I'm calling it 17-16 for Tennessee. The next game on Saturday night is Carolina Panthers hosting the Arizona Cardinals. And folks, this is a big mismatch. Carolina is a 10-point favorite. Carolina is the most physical team, along with the New York Giants, in the NFC. Arizona, They got lucky last week, but they played smart. They gave Edgerrin James the ball quite a bit. And Edgerrin hasn't been playing much this year. Look, this defense from Carolina, it won't matter if Edgerrin James or Gale Sayers or Jim Brown is running against them. That line from Arizona is better at pass blocking than at run blocking, and I think the Panthers have an easy time with it, and they come out ahead 27-10 to get to the NFC Championship game next week. On to Sunday's games, Philadelphia and the Giants of New York have played two very good games this season, both winning at the other's field. Philadelphia won in the Meadowlands about a month ago, but that was just after all that mess with Plexico Burress had hit the news. The Giants were in flux, and Brandon Jacobs was hurt. And even still, the Giants had a chance to win late in that game, but Philadelphia outrushed them and held the ball for 35 minutes. I don't think they're going to be able to do that in this game. The way the Giants win, run that ball with Brandon Jacobs, Derek Ward, Ahmad Bradshaw, and just maintain in the passing game. It'll be tough for them to do, but they can get it done. I think Philadelphia keeps it close right to the end, but I'll take the Giants here, 20-17. And finally, the last game of the weekend, the Steelers host the San Diego Chargers. Interesting stat, weird stat of the week. The Steelers, playing in Pittsburgh against San Diego, are 13-0 in their history. But when they play San Diego in Pittsburgh in the playoffs, they're 0-2. Should the Steeler fans worry? Well, sure. But here's another interesting stat. Darren Sproles, the diminutive Darren Sproles, 5'6", 180 pounds. He'll be taking over running back duties for the injured LaDainian Tomlinson. Darren Sproles touched the ball 35 times, 23 runs, 5 receptions, 4 kickoff returns, and 3 punt returns last week for a total of over 300 yards. Historically, folks, when one running back touches the ball 30 or more times in a game, the next week they are rendered quite ineffective. No one's even come close to 100 yards in the history of the NFL, having 30 rushes one game and then trying to get over that 100-yard mark the next week. So I think the Steelers handle Darren Sproles. Antonio Gates is injured. I think the Steelers handle Antonio Gates. And if Ben Roethlisberger holds onto the ball and throws it to the guys in his colored shirt, the black shirts, Steelers take that game 20-13. Well, we'd like to hear what you have to say. Just any comments, questions, suggestions, just click on the link right below this box and it'll get to me. And we appreciate you watching. Look forward to seeing you next week. Have a good week, everybody.